me see. Oh, there it is.
There we
Ask and you
go.
shall receive.
Got it.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks,
Ben.
Bailey, because that I do not know how to do. Awesome.
And
Okay.
one last thing, since we are recording, going forward, we will be producing monthly meeting minutes of these meetings. Something that I've been asking
Yes,
to do for quite some time. So I think we'll be able to do that going forward. Thank you.
that is correct. Thank you, Mayor. All right. With
If
that, we'll yield the floor to the chief.
okay,
Chief Alvarez, the floor is
thank you,
yours.
guys. Before we start, if Bailey, if you could do me a favor, Deputy Chief DeMartini is not in the room. Could you let him in, or I don't know how you have to add him, because in case we have a question about medical billing, that's why he was here as a backup in that aspect.
Yep, sounds good. He should be joining us now.
Thank you so much. Okay, good evening, all. First of all, I just want to start off by saying, Happy New Year, and thank you to everyone for making me feel so welcome. Thank you to Chief Duvall. You've been nothing but a help to me with the transition, becoming a chief, and same thing to the Township Committee, and also to BA Jimes. Again, thank you. You guys have been phenomenal. So I just want to reach out and say thank you to you guys, and make everybody else out there known how great you guys have been with bringing me on board with this stuff. So with that being said, couple things with my monthly report. Obviously, everybody got it emailed to them this afternoon. Just to give you an idea, we finished the year off, and I know that this is the November fire report, but we did finish off the year with 3,896 alarms for call for duty. Obviously, out of the November response, you can see the 341 responses, and the 149 EMS on top of that, and then COVID calls. We did have 3 confirmed transports in the month of November with COVID, and then the 18 response to fires during the month of November, and that included the 8 structure fires, 3 cooking type fires, 2 car fires, a couple of dumpster fires, and 2 fire cover assignments, mutual aid. Other than that, everything else is just kind of basic alarm calls, nothing crazy. The EMS medical billing, I know that that's something that we want to talk about. The medical billing has been collected to finish out the year 2021. Again, that was submitted to me by my deputy who does the EMS billing, and I'll make sure, I believe I sent that. If not, I will have that sent out to you guys tomorrow morning for your review. One of the biggest things that I got to inherit was obviously due to COVID sicknesses, mandates, and so forth. The overtime again was pretty high in the month of December. I have talked with Deputy Chief DeMartini on top of talking with BA Jimes. We are all working very hard, the 3 of us together. We came up with some ideas, and at the end of the month, if certain numbers don't change, we will be moving personnel around to fill the gap, to prevent that in the month of January. I'm sorry, in the month of February. I'm sorry, because we're already in January. So we are working on that very hard to bring that number down for the town. And then with that being said, the merger update or consolidation update, right now there's nothing on that. So as we sit down and start to talk with the committee, we can report something back unless somebody else has information on that. And then the last thing that I have to bring up, unless there's a question for myself or Deputy Chief DeMartini, who's here, in case you want to talk about the medical billing, which was brought up by Deputy Mayor DeLuca last month. The scanner feed for the police side, obviously the fire side is up. I did send out an email today with the details on that. Myself and BA Jimes have gone back and forth, meaning to get things squared away, not in a bad way, in a good way. We were going back and forth. We did get a radio that's up and running. It's ready to go. We're just waiting on a computer. I was told to get the computer right away, which again, has never been an issue. And that computer's coming. Once that comes in, we will then be setting that up, which hopefully will be in the next week or two. I will get an email out to you guys. We are working our butts off to get this going for everybody, and we will get that feed out there to the public. So I do apologize that it's gotten this far, but we are fixing it, and there was nothing behind it. So are there any questions about the medical billing that Mr. DeLuca brought up last month? Because I did bring in Deputy Chief DeMartini in case there was a question.
I don't have a question, Chief Alvarez. Thank you, sir, for your report. I just wanted to ask you if you could briefly, of course, there's been a lot of history regarding the scanner, but could you just briefly indicate for the public, since we are on public record here and this is being recorded, what happened here? Because I do think that there is a perception out there, as you alluded to, that something nefarious happened, that PD or any one of us or someone turned something off.
Yes.
Or so selectively, and that's clearly not the case. Can you
absolutely? I will clear that up. So going back very quickly, a couple of years, not a couple of years, some time ago, we wanted to have a scanner feed pushed out there because a lot of us, when we're not around the area, we like to listen to it on our phone, which there's apps and so forth that we can do that with. So myself and a couple other firefighters back then took it upon ourselves to put the scanner feed up. That was our scanner feed. It was being pushed out of fire station number 2. A lot of departments do that all over the country. And back then, a simple scanner was able to transmit the Maplewood fire frequency and the Maplewood police frequency. The Maplewood Fire Department, along with South Orange, along with Newark, along with Elizabeth and other department, Union Township, all went to the state system. Once we went up to the state system, we can no longer use the typical scanner to get our frequency out there as clear as it is now. If it was by scanner, we would miss something. It would skip. On our side, the police side would still be working fine, but you have to remember, my concern was getting the fire side out there. Did not realize that the public really relied on it as much as they did. But when we transferred over to the new frequency or the new talk group system, what ended up happening was we fixed it for us. And we could not transmit both frequencies over the same scanner feed. So therefore, it was just us and not the police side. Now that we realize that there is a need for this, or that the public wants it, which is fine, we then got a separate police radio, a separate computer, a separate feed system, and that will be all by itself. It'll be its own little system. So there will be a fire and a police, whereas before, if anybody who used to listen to it, it was on one scanner feed. Now you'll see there will say one that says Maplewood Fire, and then there will be one that says Maplewood Police on the actual, what's it called, radioreference.com, or one of your scanner apps that would be on one of your smartphones. You'll see 2. So you'll have to be able to do that. But so there was no craziness going on or shadiness. I'll just use the word. There was no shadiness going on. That was the fire department transmitting the system. When we went to a different radio frequency, we were, again, only with us. Sorry, Chief DeVaul. Don't want to make it sound like we don't care about you guys, but no, we do. But I wanted my frequency out there, not yours. And then now that we see that there's a dire need, I have no problem setting the police department up the way they need to be set up, and we'll all be good. And I promise we'll get it out there as soon as possible.
Thank you, Chief. That's really helpful.
You're welcome, sir.
That. And the public who has an interest in this appreciates it. Can you also tell us when we expect to be able to receive the equipment, recognizing delays in receiving equipment right now?
So that might be, we're praying that we can get it quicker, sooner than not. If we do find, Mr. Mayor, if we do find a delay in getting the ones that were ordered, we're going to try to do something to speed that up. Even if we have to get, and again, it might not be perfect, but even if we have to get an older computer tower to get it out there, we will get it out there in a timely fashion. But there might be a transfer when we have to get the new computer, and you want it to be on a new computer. You don't want it to be on something that's going to keep kind of going in and out of service. We don't want that. We want it to be, computers are not that expensive. We want a new computer to go with the radio system to get it out there. So we do it right. We do it once.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. So in conclusion, the takeaway is that there was nothing malicious or anything against the public. It was just a simple logistical process between when we shifted from our local to the state, changing the variants, and therefore the scanner was just part of that situation.
Chair McGehee, can I just add one thing here? First, I want to publicly thank Chief Alvarez and also Chief DeVal for working on this, and Chief Alvarez for bringing all of your technology knowledge to pro bono to the town to do this. So thank you. I think one thing that the community may not realize is these third-party apps, the apps themselves have a mind of their own. Sometimes there'll be a delay. So in terms of once it's ready and we issue a public statement saying with your very clear directions on how to access, I think it might be helpful to also say, please recognize that these apps, they work on their own and we can't control that. And there may be a delay. And some of those apps have agreements where they don't share tactical information or things that are sensitive, just to, in the interest of transparency, because I know you guys aren't trying to hide anything, but to give that assurance to the public.
No, absolutely, Erin. But there's one last thing I do have to say. It's anywhere between 4 and 7 second delay. So if somebody's talking on a radio and you're sitting at home, it's like a 7-second delay, and then you'll hear them talk. So there is a little bit of a delay. Why? Because it's a radio going into the computer and a computer pushing it out through the net. So there is a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
And one key factor that we must mention as well is that this is a public company or a private company. It's not, it's not a government-based app company, and that company can go out and go bankrupt. So that app may not survive. We don't know the financial conditions of that app. So if that app happens to become dysfunctional or no longer in existence, that is not, a reflection on the township of Maplewood and our efforts. Is a reflection on that third-party application. That should be noted. So, all right, thank you everyone for putting some closure around that issue. I appreciate that collectively. Mr. Daffis, do you have any questions regarding overtime? I know that the chief reviewed that. We do have the reports. Are there any questions that you have regarding overtime? He has acknowledged that we've seen a significant spike in the 5-year trend for the month of December. Is there anything that you want to highlight?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And also, Chief, I'll slide this over, but so as we talked about, I know we've traditionally done the reports like this, with the 5-year charts and showing the numbers. This is an example of the actual cost. The other example is showing it in hours. So it's a very comparable type of lens or narrative. What I like for us to work on moving forward in the months to come, and let me slide that over, as we look at here, which is the hours, and I think it's a good story, but I like to truncate the story and put something together a little more like this, where instead of looking at 5-year run rate, I like to look at a 3-year run rate. I think we've had COVID now for nearly 2 years, and I think what we need to see is more realistic figures to give us a breadth of where we are. So I know I shared it with you, so maybe next month or so we can convert our report from a 5-year to a 3-year for trends, and then also use a different format that may be a little more palatable to understand versus this one here. So that's that's a request in terms of from a data compiling and presenting standpoint.
That is not a problem, sir. I will start working on that and make sure that I will make sure that our graph looks like that for next month.
Yeah, just 3 years instead of 5.
I'm okay with that.
I've been on this committee now for 6 years, so I've seen those numbers already. No, I'm joking.
I'm good with that.
Thank you, Chief. And then the last thing I have in regards to EMS billing, and then I'll touch on the consolidation, is, and thank you, Deputy Chief DeMartini. We've looked at some of these, the going rates of some of the things that we do, versus what the current charges. And the question is, since we haven't changed things in almost 9 years, so this is what we were talking about previously with Deputy Mayor DeLuca, is there an appetite? Does it make sense to revisit some of these current charges, and look at maybe, 9 years is a long time. So we're not trying to, make a significant spike theoretically, but I do think we've looked at this before on the law enforcement side, with Ryan, his team, with certain types of, within range of tickets and stuff like that. But are these prices and charges outdated? Is this something that we can revisit? Because we do provide our EMS service. It's a great benefit to the community, but there's a cost associated. And, we don't want to undervalue the service and the quality of service which we're providing. And also, if there's an opportunity to put us more in the black, if you will, or balance the books, then this is an opportunity. So I'm not looking for answers right now per se, but I'd like to do the exercise maybe the next meeting of looking at some of the charges, the going rates versus what we're charging, and get your assessment, and DeMartini, yours as well, Chief, about maybe we look at some incremental increases in these charges.
I completely support that. And when you look at this chart, you see that in some instances, we're not charging anything, right? And we should. So I definitely support moving forward in this direction.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. That's it for me. I'll really quick on the consolidation. We will be connecting with you, obviously, Chief and Deputy Chief, shortly. We're in pure operation mode right now. We're working with the other municipality, looking at some of the costs related to operations and looking at what makes sense for the merger. So we're really now in the details. We're involving our CFO and other key stakeholders to make sure that we come to a like-minded an agreement, and then from there we'll be pretty much ready to go. So we're really now getting into the details and the weeds, the operational costs of certain functions that we do as a department, looking what we do versus what South Orange does, looking at the delta and trying to come up with something that makes most sense for the merged department. So that's where we are on the consolidation update. We will be meeting with South Orange, not end of this month, beginning of next month, to come back to the table and discuss our findings as well as see updates from theirs. So that's it. All right.
Look forward to working with you.
Likewise, Chief. All right. Well, now at public comment, I do see that we have 2 individuals that are attending. If anyone's interested in addressing our Chief and Deputy Chief, please raise your hand, and Ms. Barnett will bring you over for 3 minutes of a public comment.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I apologize for the interruption again. I just wanted to state on the record, just to make sure that everything is clear for the public, when we were talking about EMS billing and some of the things that we don't charge for at all right now, including the charges that may be outdated, we just want to make it clear that these aren't direct citizen charges, but rather through insurance reimbursements.
Right.
That's important to state. and thank you for allowing me to do so.
No worries, Mayor. Thank you. All right. Ms. Barnett, I'm not seeing any hands. Are you? Also. All right, seeing none, we will conclude our fire component or portion of our meeting this evening. And I know the chief has a pressing meeting at the county level, as well as the deputy chief. So we'll say good night to you, gentlemen. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. And we need to have any postmortem we can follow up in the days ahead.
All right, thank you guys very much. Have a great night.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night. All right, we'll now move on to our police portion of the meeting. We're going to start off by getting an update from our community board. Moving forward, what we'd like to do is, as our community board is such an integral part of our, not just our community, but just public safety, we want to start our police portion of our meeting, be at the very beginning of the meeting or after fire, depending on the month, with with an update / report from one of the representatives from the board. The board meets at least once a month, but has a high level of correspondence, and I can already speak to that my first month as a liaison. So they're very engaged. They have their pulse on the community, and they provide great direction and great value. And so with that, I'm going to yield the floor to I honestly outgoing co-chair, Ms. Scherzer. And I do believe that Mayor Daffis also has a report on behind that as well, an update too. So Ms. Scherzer, I yield the floor.
Perfect. And thank you for providing this, including the police board in these public safety meetings. It just creates better efficiency, better conversations, and one less meeting we have to have at another point in time, and one less email. So just an update from the last time members of the police board were at the public safety meeting back in September. Our board had a retreat, our first time meeting some of our members in public because they joined in person because they joined during the pandemic. But we decided we did a brainstorming session, and then we narrowed in on 4 objectives for 2022. And so I want to provide a quick update for this committee and any members of the public that are listening on what those 4 objectives are and where we are with them. One of those objectives is to help the police department with identifying training and being able to advocate to the township for better financial support. Our current elected leaders on the township have tried to get more training dollars for the police department, but we know that more dollars are needed. So we have a subcommittee that's working to help identify some trainings like autism training, additional use of force trainings, items like that to help supplement what the department is currently doing. So that's one area of focus. The second area of focus is about almost 2 years ago, the New Jersey Attorney General permitted community police boards the opportunity to review internal affairs. It's a limited scope. It's after a decision has been made by either the prosecutor or by the actual police department. Maplewood was one of the first, actually, I think the first, to actually add that power to the police board. So we have a subcommittee right now we haven't been able to do work yet because we are going through training with the county. We have to go through background checks, but I want to give a special acknowledgement to Chief DeBall, Deputy Chief Sally, who sat down with me back in December to kind of talk through how the process is, and are really willing to really be a co-partner here so that once we're able to get in there, we're able to provide an effective review. Our scope of review, I mean, there's many situations that could rise to the level of an internal affairs investigation, either by the department or by the county prosecutor's office. Our focus is only on interactions that involve members of the civilians, so not anything that happens behind the scenes, with exception of if it rises to the level of major discipline, which the department is required to publicly put out there under Attorney General directive. So I hope by our next time we'll hear, we have gone through our training, which I believe will happen at the end of this month, start our background check, and we'll be ready to roll here. Our third objective is so we when our board first started, one of the first pieces of data that we looked at, and Mayor Daffis was very helpful in helping us do this data analysis, was non-emergency calls to the police department. And we specifically looked at who was being called upon. And I don't think anyone on this call will be surprised that, neighbors do use our police as a way to intrude upon our Black and brown residents, just being Black and brown folks, just living life like everybody else lives life. And I know this has been a concern of the police officers themselves, obviously a huge concern of the community. So one thing that we're working on is we have a campaign to help people understand when to call 911 and when to perhaps engage in better conversations with your neighbors, or just let people live their life. And we're very thankful that now Chairman McGeehee is on our committee, because I know this is an issue that he's very, very passionate about as well. And I know will be a good advocate in our community. So that's one area, just to kind of get that word out there and further track that data. And with that, traffic will be there a little bit. The last area, and I'm not even gonna try to describe it all, because I think Bailey should talk about all the work on the new social worker initiative. Our board pushed for this, we advocated for this. We did analysis behind the scenes and help with the job description, but we can only take it but so far. And handing it over to Bailey was such a smooth transition, and she just ran with it and created this incredible program that's about to launch. And it's amazing in such a short period of time what we're about to see. So I hope Bailey can talk about that. But I have one last item. One thing that we at our retreat identified is trying to have better communication with the police department and also with Township Administrator Gimes, who's also incredible. So we have set up monthly calls with both Deputy Chief Duvall, Deputy Chief Sally, Captain Malloy, and then also with I always forget last name, sorry, Township Administrator Gimes, just so we can make sure the ideas and work that's coming through the committee actually follow through. And I think the social work initiative is a good example of how that's in action, and also to hear directly from the department on things that we can improve upon. So Chief Duvall had an excellent idea about, well, we can't do it now because of Omicron, but once we can go back to the department, going there on Power Wednesdays at the different shift changes, to be able to just get to know more of the officers, because the pandemic has made that challenging for us as a board to be able to do. So our hope is this collaboration will help us better execute some of our initiatives going forward. I hope I didn't miss anything. I'm sorry if I did.
Oh, no, I think I was just remembering all the meetings we've had in the last week. I think you covered, you nailed it. Again, and for the public's edification, just listen to the breadth of work and goals for 2022. And as Ms. Scherzer articulated, from really addressing our behavior, our pattern of dialing 911 when it's unnecessary. We really want to educate the public and work with the public and have a goal to really lower that number. So access to the data, working with the chief and his team and whoever the main data person is, or his backup, because I know you always have a backup if we can't get to the main person. And extracting that data, massaging it, and creating a benchmark, saying, okay, of 100 911 calls, based on how we categorize our 911 calls, we realize that, that 60% of these 911 calls theoretically are not 911 calls, they're not emergency. So how do we educate our community to stop dialing, although we've been conditioned since a young age, those 3 digits in our non-emergency number to help alleviate some of the operations and also potential escalations that can occur when you dial that number. So we're going to work on that this year. We're excited, and more to come. So let me yield the floor over to the mayor and to Ms. Barnett to talk a little more about this amazing initiative that we have with our social work program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as Ms. Scherzer said, our crisis intervention program is no longer in labor. it is about to be delivered. And I really want to turn it over to Miss Barnett, who's done some incredible work to actually bring us to this moment where this is going to be realized. Bailey?
Thank you. Yes. So the Crisis Intervention Social Worker Program is coming along really well. We have a few finalist candidates that we're going to be interviewing next week. We actually already have the majority of those scheduled with final time slots, and we have some time set up for a second round of interviews if needed, but our goal is to, within the next week and a half, I would say, to like have a candidate finally locked in, send them a job offer, and begin the onboarding process. And we've given ourselves a month-long buffer just so that everyone can kind of be on the same page and ready to roll as soon as they come in, so that even though this is a new program, they have that stability that they need once they join our team. So we had a meeting actually just today, our working group did for the program with the liaisons. So DC Sally from Police Department and DC Martini from the Fire Department, who's just on the call. And we got to talk about how we'll be implementing the social worker into the dispatch process, what that's going to look like, kind of introducing, or not even introducing because there's been conversations, but formalizing the introduction of this program into both police and fire over the next month or so, and then how we're going to go about introducing this new team member to both departments, getting them to know the different folks they'll be working with, getting a chance to tour PD, tour fire, get a better idea of the day-to-day workings in both of those places, and just kind of build those relationships before going in. And we were able to schedule, or at least outline a schedule of how we're going to be doing that the person's first week. So the plan is to really just hit the ground running and make sure that they're part of all these different departments in one big team from day one. And we've been working really hard going into this to make sure that all the departments are on the same page, because this involves a lot of coordination, not just between police and fire, but also MHA will be providing the supervisory component of the program through a very generous Maplewood resident funded donation. So then their supervisor actually sits at the Mental Health Association of Essex and Morris counties. I realized I said MHA earlier for those who aren't familiar with that acronym. And then they'll also be reporting directly in terms of just township administration sort of things like timesheet, salary, sick days, vacation, just the mean potatoes kind of being an employee. They'll be reporting to Candace Davenport in the health department for that, and that's where they'll be physically seated. So this requires a lot of coordination, collaboration, but everything's been going well so far. We've been doing a good job. And we're really now just kind of fine tuning everything and getting ready for that person to join our team. Their anticipated start date is February 16th. So that's right after the February 15th TC meeting, where we're hoping to have the resolution finalizing their employment be approved. So that's where we're at right now, which is really exciting.
It is really exciting. And just to, we'll talk more in the coming weeks about what this is going to look like. And obviously we're going to make adjustments as we launch and get into this a little bit further, but we're looking at flexible schedule for this individual. Sometimes it'll be 9 to 5 and other times it'll be after hours, because when we look at our EMT calls, for instance, they happen to be at night and during the weekends. So we're going to try and figure out how we can make a 40-hour a week, a full staff person have that level of flexibility. Maybe they work a 4-day week rather than a 5-day week, to give them, a little bit of a buffer, and to incentivize having to work the late shift sometimes to be able to directly assist with some of these vulnerabilities. The days that they're 9 to 5 are critical. We don't want to miss the fact that they have to do a lot of follow-up with social services agencies to support these vulnerabilities. So they're having a 9 to 5 presence is very important. It's not just about the direct being there at the call. And to get us launched and to establish credibility and some comfort level interdepartmentally, this is going to be a co-response, right? So the social worker will be there along with PD and EMT. For PD is there for backup. And as we better understand our needs and what these calls are going to be for the social worker, I think we will be able to, adjust accordingly. But this is going to definitely be a co-response in the beginning. So we're in a really, really good place. And again, I want to thank Township Administrator Gimes and Assistant Administrator Barnett in all of their heavy lifting to get this up and running from the administrative side. All of these details are, there's a lot going on and a lot needs to be figured out before the person joins us to make this successful. And we're in a good place to make it happen.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Barnett and Mr. Gimes, for your efforts, a collective effort, and a win. It's a win. So great. All right, we're going to move on to the second part of our agenda, which is our November monthly report summaries, the discussion. I'm going to yield the floor to Chief Duvall.
Thank you, Mr. McGehee. If you don't mind, I'd just like to comment on the Community Board on Police portion of the meeting. Aaron, I just noted the topics that you brought up and just wanted to address them quickly. Obviously, as you mentioned, training, we cannot get enough training. As a part of my monthly report, I'll be reporting that we've done some autism training. And I think I want all of us to agree on the following thing. Training is expensive if it's good, and you can't have enough of it. That's what I want to comment on that. And that's why that this schedule is conducive for training, the Power Wednesday. IA, obviously, we're in full support of you. We made the connection between the board and the prosecutor's office, so we'll do what we can to make sure that flows smoothly as possible. The social worker, I'm excited to see how this integrates. So once this candidate comes on board, obviously we're going to welcome them, and we look forward them into our department. Lastly, and very important, I think, to all of us is your comments about the non-emergent calls to PD. We don't have enough time on this meeting to talk about the crazy calls that come to PD. We just don't. From my neighbor's dog is going on my lawn to everything. So I look forward to that messaging. We are conveying this, and hopefully we could do it together in some format to my dispatchers, that when we're receiving these calls, we're treating them more like 311 and diverting them so that way we don't have to send police. So I think there will be some pushback from the public on that. But frankly, I think my responsibility is that my officers and my dispatchers know what emergency calls they absolutely have to go to, what can wait, and what we can properly divert. Because yes, and I left that for last on purpose because you wouldn't believe the crazy calls that we get. Mr. McGehee, that's what I wanted to address as part of that report.
Thank you, Chief. And that's great. It's going to be a collaborative effort. And in the end, as you said, it's a win for your team. It's a win for the community. So excellent. Chief, I'll let you go ahead and start. I have a question for you. I have your report open in one of my monitors here. Do you want me to share my screen or no? Because I know there's, I just want to be, I'm saying this publicly, but I know that we traditionally don't share it on the screen. So I don't want to share there's stuff that shouldn't be in space.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things that are in here that are very specific to events that I've had in town that would not be releasable to the public. As a part of my monthly, as I usually do, I will go over the major crimes, and I'll also go over the crime trends. So we had one robbery this month, the month of November. Remember, we're talking specifically about the month of November, and then I'll go over the overall year-to-date stats. For the month of November, we had a robbery at the Walgreens. In this case, an individual walked up and approached the cashier and demanded money. They did not did not display a weapon, but they held their hand inside their jacket, implying that they had a weapon. So that would be considered the same as an armed robbery, even though they didn't display the actual weapon. Robberies are down substantially for the month by 50%, and year to date, violent crime is down 44%. Next, I'll move on to aggravated assault. Aggravated assault is one of those things. There's a lot of reasons why we're up, but particularly for the month, we had 2 aggravated assaults with arrests made, and they were both domestic violence related. And we have seen as a trend that we're up considerably since COVID with domestic violence related assaults. We have brought that up on prior occasions as well. Overall, Mr. McGehee, the theft overall in the town is down substantially, down by almost 40%. That includes all the shopliftings as well. Shopliftings, theft from vehicles, and particularly around holidays, you have theft of packages. So, the numbers seem high, but they're down considerably. But those are the areas I recommend, particularly when it comes to package thefts. These are the type of things that are avoidable if you schedule deliveries or make other arrangements to pick them up at private facilities, just to mitigate the risks of the thefts associated. And that is my monthly report regarding the crime. I covered the month of November, and I covered year to date, where year to date we're down overall about 18%.
No, it's a great story, Chief. Seeing that cumulative crime down 18%, seeing some of the crime down, significantly 40%, in theft as you articulated. Yes, it's the higher of the number, but it's still down.
Mr. McGehee, I did not cover the auto thefts, and I mean, it is the same trend. We had 8 cars stolen. 6 of them were running. Some of them were in their own driveways. So you had, of the 8, you had 6 of them running. You had 1 of them taken by a person known to that person, known to the other person. So although I don't know if you really count that, but unfortunately we have to. There's only 1 that we're aware of that was stolen without the keys for the month, and that continues to be the trend, not only in town but statewide.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, it seems to be a ongoing issue that we've had now for years, and we know there's a balance. So
we've made several arrests, but I would say I'm just going to talk particular to Maplewood. Probably 95% of arrests made are juveniles, and we charge them and drive them home. So that's just a process, not our process.
Understood. Thank you, Chief. Mayor Daff, has any questions regarding the report for November and year to date?
No, I guess the one thing that I'm thinking about as we talk about juveniles and petty larceny in this instance is whether or not we're still doing youth restorative justice as appropriate where necessary.
Yeah, the program is absolutely in place, and as you can see in the monthly report, juvenile arrests are down significantly. I'm very proud to hear that around our schools now that our schools are more opening. The types of problems we have in the middle school and in the high school have greatly reduced.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, thank you. Okay, do you want to go ahead and cover UCR?
Uniform crime reporting. That was right. That was what I covered. That uniform crime reporting is that we are down 38%, 38.24% in theft. we're down 44.44% in violent crime, and overall we're down 17.47% for all UCR reported crimes.
Okay. Because I'm looking at both reports. I'm looking at the UCR year-to-date December one. That's what I was looking at. So.
Yeah, we continually update that.
Yeah, that's the one I was looking at. The second one, not the I had the first one tab.
Yeah,
30.
Yep. The second report that's provided is unofficial.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to overtime then.
As you could see, the one thing that in the overtime report, the one thing that you could see is there's first off, it's really incredible that in most fields that we're still down in overtime, particularly compared to past year's budgets. But I want you to note that the time period on this overtime report runs January 1st through December 31st. So for the year of 21, there should be no changes. This should be the whole year's overtime report through December 31st. And you'll note that in 2020, there was only 2 pay periods. And in 2021, we had 3 pay periods because it was a 27 pay period. So now in theory, you would only recognize that down at the bottom of the report where it says total salaries and overtime, right? But some of the other numbers incorporated that above is a result of 3 pay periods. So where it may not make sense at the end of the day, because this is a report that runs through the end of the year, where it says total salaries and overtime, that's the final number. That's the number to look at. So it's a little askew from seeing that it's 3 pay periods compared to 2. But at the end of the day, we are still only up 4% compared to 2020.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, your Power Wednesdays, the way everything is working operationally, it's a great job.
We have significant COVID impacts as well. It's not just the fire department. So we've been doing some scheduling miracles.
Yeah,
I thank my officers for that as well.
Exactly. No, thank all the officers for for keeping us safe and keeping our community balanced. It's a great story. Mayor, questions regarding overtime?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. We're now actually at our 5th and final agenda item for police, which is public comment. So Ms. Barnett, let us take a look at our participants, attendees, and see if anyone is in there wants to raise. Oh, we have 2. Would anyone like to address our police chief at this time? Please raise your hand, and Ms. Barnett will switch you over to a panelist.
I'm seeing no hands.
Okay. Seeing no hands, I second what you see. All right. With that being said, Mr. Daffis, do you have any additional comments, closing remarks?
I do not. I motion we adjourn.
All right. I second that. Mr. Gimes, Ms. Scherzer, Ms. Barnett, and Chief Duvall, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you all, and have a great evening.
Great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you all.